So Elizabeth Warren is kneecapping Bernie Sanders tonight on Super Tuesday. If you look at the results rolling in, it's about 9:30 Eastern right now. Warren is failing to reach viability in most of the states. In some of them, she's right on that threshold. Only in Massachusetts is she actually safely within the viability zone. She's above 20. But even in her home state, she's in third place right now. Warren is only achieving one thing tonight: hurting Bernie Sanders and helping Joe Biden. Maybe that's two things, I guess. Because Warren is going to go home with very few delegates. In a lot of these states, her getting 6, 7, 8, 9% of the vote would likely render her delegate list, but it's hurt Bernie Sanders. It's meant that Joe Biden has had larger leads over Bernie, or that Bernie Sanders has had smaller leads over Joe Biden. There's a few states where Bernie Sanders himself is right on the viability threshold, with Warren far behind him. And that if Warren dropped out, Bernie Sanders would have become viable, and it would have put him in greater delegate contention. And this shows that Elizabeth Warren may be hurting Bernie Sanders more than Amy Klobuchar or Pete Buttigieg or Beto O'Rourke ever could have with their dropping out and endorsements of Joe Biden. Because we all sort of expected that the neoliberals, when the chips were down, would all come together. We maybe didn't think it would be as early as Super Tuesday, but we knew it would come when they felt they had to stop Bernie. It was just a matter of time. But many of us, maybe we were wrong to do so, hoped that when the chips were down for progressives, that Bernie and Warren would unite. I am very confident that if things were switched around tonight, Bernie Sanders would have dropped out, endorsed Elizabeth Warren, moved his delegates to her, moved his resources to her, and done everything in his power to make her the nominee, because despite the fact that there are differences between the two, they share a lot more commonalities than either do with Joe Biden, or at least that's what people thought. But Elizabeth Warren staying in this race under the faintest of hopes that the few dozen delegates she would win would allow her to win a contested convention was an absurd notion. And I have to think that that was Warren's excuse, and that Elizabeth Warren is playing the same game that Buttigieg and Klobuchar and Beto O'Rourke and all the rest were playing, which is to stop Bernie Sanders from winning the nomination. And whereas those former people stopped Bernie Sanders by dropping out and endorsing Joe Biden, Warren's true value was to hurt Bernie Sanders by siphoning the progressive vote, by getting just enough votes to be viable in certain states like California to narrow the Bernie Biden gap, by getting just enough votes in some of the southern states to stop Bernie Sanders from being viable, to get just enough votes in many other states to ensure that Biden has a slightly bigger win than expected, or that Bernie has a slightly smaller win than expected, all in service of preventing a Bernie Sanders victory. Look, guys, I haven't given up on tonight, and I haven't given up on the race. What it shows right now is that it's likely going to be very close between Bernie Sanders and Joe Biden at the end of the night. You might say that that's a win for Joe Biden because the initial projections a few weeks ago showed Bernie Sanders with a big Super Tuesday. But if this effectively becomes a two-horse race, a lot can change, and Bernie Sanders will be much closer to Joe Biden after Super Tuesday than he was to Hillary Clinton after Super Tuesday. And indeed, Bernie Sanders could well have the lead when all is said and done after tonight. But Elizabeth Warren has caused irreparable harm tonight to the progressive movement. We might well lose the whole nomination, and a big chunk of that is on Warren. Whether it's because Bernie misses out on a majority, or because Biden edges him out with a plurality, Warren staying in this race, Warren winning worthless votes throughout much of the country, has done more harm to Bernie than almost anything else has in this primary process on the biggest day of the entire cycle. This is not what progressives need. Elizabeth Warren is not dumb. She's probably one of the smartest people in the race. She knows that if she actually gave a damn about her policies, Medicare for all, gave a damn about taxing the rich, gave a damn about childcare, gave a damn about really challenging corruption and inequality and injustice, then the only person that she could get behind to implement part, and indeed probably most of her program, is Bernie Sanders. Joe Biden will not do that. Nobody else in the field would have done that. And so if you're a Warren supporter and you voted for her tonight, I'm not blaming you. I'm blaming the fact that Elizabeth Warren essentially kept in this race knowing that the only effect of her staying in would be to help Joe Biden become the nominee and therefore Donald Trump become the president. But there's still a lot of delegates left to be won. And if you're Elizabeth Warren supporter, after tonight, I need to implore you to reconsider that she will not be viable in nearly enough states, that she's hurting Bernie and helping Biden, and that if you want Medicare for all, and you want to tax the rich, if you want a national child care program, if you want to fight for social and political and economic justice, if you want a Green New Deal, there's only one person that's going to move in the right direction, even if it's not the exact same way Elizabeth Warren would do it. And it's Bernie Sanders. So guys, I'm going to get back to watching the results, but I want you to know that tonight was a demonstration of how the neoliberals, when the chips were down, united, but Elizabeth Warren, at the moment of truth, hurt progressives deeply.